Australia and Malaysia have a long-standing friendship built on shared history, people-to-people links and vast cooperation. To tackle future opportunities and challenges, in 2021 we elevated our relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership, or a CSP. Our defence and security ties date back to World War II, when Australian and Malaysian soldiers fought side by side. Looking ahead, the CSP also lets us cooperate on issues like maritime, cybersecurity and transnational crime. Through trade, Australia and Malaysia play a vital role in each other's prosperity. Our economies are complementary, and our commercial ties support jobs, food security and innovation. Education is at the heart of the relationship. Our deep people-to-people links have been forged through generations of Malaysians studying in Australia and increasingly Australians studying in Malaysia. Finally, the CSP also helps us collaborate on issues shaping our future, like the digital economy, the environment, health and science. Building on our long-standing and enduring friendship, the CSP lets us confront common challenges and seize opportunities. Mari bersama kami.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Youth Parliamentary Debathon 2022. Our motion topic for today is Amendment of Political Financing Law in Malaysia. My name is Iman Ridwan, and I will be your MC for this event and be with you all throughout the whole event this afternoon. Youth Parliamentary Debathon is organized by Malaysia Kini and Kini Events with support from our partners, which are our collaborative partners, European Union and Australian High Commission in Malaysia, strategic partner Bersih, youth empowerment partner Taylor College, our co-partner Malaysian Institute of Debate and Public Speaking MIDP, Undi 18, Undi Sabah, Impact Malaysia, The Risers, Institute for Research and Development of Policy IRDP, University Malaya Students Union UMSU, and lastly, International Islamic University Malaysia Students Union. Along with our media partners for this season, Kini TV, World of Buzz, Chili Sauce, and also Astro Awani. We would like to emphasize here that the discussion this evening is solely for knowledge purposes and to encourage the youth to voice out their respective opinions. Please do take note that all statements and suggestions from the debaters do not represent the stand of the organizer or any institution. For your information, today's debater are a total of 8 people aged between 20 and 25 from all over Malaysia. Before the event begins, I would like to make a few announcements. First, this event will be conducted in English. Each debater will be given 3 minutes to present his and her problem statement and suggestions. A digital timer will be displayed on the screen during the presentation. And lastly, the audience can vote statements and popular debater on the website mk.my/undidebat. At the end of today's session, we will also select and announce the best debater. I would also like to introduce the panel judges who will be judging and selecting the debater today. They are Mr. Luke McGreevy, Second Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade from Australian High Commission in Malaysia. Ms. Catherine Expedite, Program Director, School of Professional Studies from Taylor's College. Mr. Chandran Ravi, Chief Operating Officer from Malaysia Kini. And lastly, Mr. Azim Nazari, Head of Training and Development from Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking, MIDP. Thank you so much to our panel judges. Without further ado, I would also like to invite Mr. Martin Vengadesan, Associate Editor of English Desk at Malaysia Kini, to give his opening remark. Mr. Martin, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much for joining us once again for our last episode of the Youth Parliamentary Debathon for this year, 2022. I would like to thank our collaborating partners, our youth empowerment partner, strategic partner, honorable moderator, our youth debaters today, and of course, media partners and our viewers who are watching us live. Good afternoon, everyone. The motion topic for today's episode is the amendment of political financing law in Malaysia. I'm sure that everyone who's watching is eager to hear about this. Several high-profile court cases linked to political donations have raised calls by civil society for laws on political funding. For your information, political donations are the contribution of funds to a political activity, political party, or candidates. Currently, Malaysia has no enforced law to regulate and monitor political funding, besides the limits on campaign spending by candidates. This is the biggest reason why corruption linked to political donations are so widespread. The purpose of organizing this event is to hear out what youths have to say about the downside of not having a proper law to regulate political funding, and also to hear their suggestions on how to amend the law in order for high-profile cases such as 1MDB and SRC International not to be repeated. I hope the debaters are ready to take this discussion further, and I wish them all the best. Let's put on a good show. Thank you very much, and I hope viewers will stay throughout the debate and have an enjoyable afternoon. That's all for me. I'll be passing the screen to the MC again.
Thank you to Mr. Martin for his speech just now. With this, Youth Parliamentary Debathon 2022 will start now. A total of 4 debaters who will be presenting their statements. Representing the government, and they are Aishwarya D. Menon from University Pendidikan Sultan Idris UPSI, Hasbul Hadi from the National University of Malaysia UKM, Ahmad Akif from University of Malaya. And our last debater from the government team is Alif Zakwan from International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. Meanwhile, a total of 4 debaters will be presenting their statements. Representing the opposition, and they are Umar Farouk from International Islamic College, Amir Aiman from University Utara Malaysia, Riyad Ilham from University of Nottingham, Malaysia, and our last debater from the opposition team is Anis Afina from International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. I would like to kindly remind the debaters, please follow the rules and ethics during the parliamentary proceedings that have been presented during the previous briefing session. Next, I invite Mr. Muhammad Ika Daniel, Assistant Director at the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, IDFR, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to moderate this debate. Mr. Muhammad Ika Daniel, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Iman Rizwan from Malaysia Kini for the very kind introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to dear viewers online and also all our respected debaters for today's session. So as introduced by Iman just now, I am Ika Daniel from Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Malaysia. And I was being assigned today as the Honorable Speaker of the House. And as the public knows, the title of the motion for today's debate is Amendment of Political Financing Law in Malaysia. So before we start our debate today, let me give you some brief introduction about the topic. Calls by civil society for laws and political funding have grown over the months, particularly in light of several high-profile court cases linked to political donations, especially in the case of Malaysia. Political donations, as we all know, are the contribution of funds to a political activity, political party, or maybe political candidate individually. Currently, there are no laws in Malaysia to regulate and monitor political funds, although there are limits on campaign spendings. So this is the topic that we are going to debate today. And with us today, we are having 8 charismatic and youthful debaters who are going to debate over the session. And before we begin, let me just give you some friendly reminder. As being told by Imam Rizwan just now, all of you have 3 minutes to present your statement. And as the Speaker of the House, I have the right to stop your statement as soon as possible if you do not oblige by the rule. And without further ado, now let me invite the first debater from the government team, Honorable Honorable Ashwarya Dimenan, 25 years old, a future educator, currently pursuing her studies at University Pendidikan Sultan Idris, or UPSI. So without further ado, Honorable Ashwarya Menon, to present your statement for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and the members of the floor. And I'm honored to initiate the grounds of the motion today with a piece of news by Asia Sentinel that defines the gist of this debate. In 2016, in the wake of the 1MDB scandal, the then Prime Minister revealed he sustained the loyalty of party members' tradition using money from his personal account that was funded by a foreign donor for the 13th general election. Now, let me tell you why this is disastrous. Firstly, there is no regulation on how much he spends on his intra-party affairs. And secondly, he faced no legal repercussions back then for accepting millions of ringgit from an undisclosed foreign donor. Well, I don't deny Malaysia is a well-constituted nation, but I just wish there weren't as many loopholes. For instance, the Election Offences Act of 1954 only mandates a spending limit for the general election campaigning period with no restrictions on funds and expenditure before or after the stipulated period or for intra-party elections. Ironically, we're living the reality where politicians aren't afraid of receiving donations, but their donors are, fearing the discrimination from the executive arms of political parties. We have a dire need for a political financing framework that equally empowers the 3 key stakeholders, which are the politicians, the financiers, and the electorates alike, against political corruption. And this can only be achieved by, number 1, reforms of agencies responsible for monitoring political activities, such as the Election Committee and the Registrar of Societies, and number 2, active measures to curb monetized politics. And this is why an amendment is necessary. I understand the opposition might question the sustainability of such amendments. First, monitoring agencies have to exist independently from the executive arm of the ruling party. Instead of housing the Election Committee and the Registrar of Societies under a ministry, we should have an office for public prosecutors that can give them an impartial appointment to high-level positions, impartial monitoring and enforcement capabilities, as well as prosecution of election offenses, such as the discrimination of political financiers. A nation's politics is never meant to be a shady business, and hence political funding and expenditure should be made available for public scrutiny. Existing laws underlying political financing ethics should be amended to include public laws restricting permissible amount of donations and impose conditions to fulfill as a donor instead of sweeping it under the rug. Privatized and foreign donations should have a maximum threshold of contribution to a single source, and cash donation should possibly be avoided. And finally, any companies at all costs that have a stake or administrative power to the government should be restrained from becoming political financiers. In our paradigm, political financing is an outlet the masses look for to see the change the nation needs, empoweringly, and politicians are the leader of the nation instead of a faction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ashwarya Dimenan, for the very energetic introduction as the first Speaker of the government. And sorry also, Honorable, for mispronounce your name just now. Her beauty is too captivating and fascinating to me until I could not differentiate between her and Ashwarya Rai. Sorry for that. And without further ado, I would like to open the floor for the representative from the opposition, the first speaker from the opposition side, Honorable Umar Farouk, 20 years old, currently a student at International Islamic College or IIC. So I would like to invite Honorable Umar to present your statement in 3 minutes. Please welcome.
Our country will never achieve justice if only the political parties from the government side dominating the televisions and newspapers. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good evening, honorable panels, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, oppositions, members of the floor. Firstly, I would like to give the definition of political finance. Secondly, I will provide my arguments, my reasons, and an example on why I choose the usage of media and newspapers for a political party is as important as political fundings. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the floor, what is political finance? The narrowest definition is money for electioneering. This money may be spent by candidates for public office and also by their political parties or by other individuals or organized group of supporters. It is used specifically to compete in an election and to pay the cost of complying with the applicable laws governing political finance. Now, members of the floor, colleagues, the media is very important when it comes to politics and development because it has the capacity to influence the citizens' belief. The mass media are key factors in the electoral process because they are channels of providing information on the parties, their manifestos, the contestants, and the election processes so that the voters can make informed choices. There's a study done by University of Michigan on the impact of newspapers towards the public. The study has stated that there's a clear tactic of persuasion from the newspapers towards the public, the ones that reading the newspapers. Although newspapers reporting was primarily neutral, readers can tend to criticize the bad news that has been highlighted in the newspaper. The bad news can be directly or indirectly towards the opposition parties. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, members of the floor, you can find many examples of this in real life. Just think of the political landscape here in Malaysia. Barisan Nasional, BN, has successfully used the media to maintain its power for the past 57 years, nearly 60 years, making it the longest serving elected government in the world and still currently in office. They are using the national channel, i.e. RTM, as their main platform to promote events on their behalf, even during the time of an election, which is happening now. So members of the floor, my beloved panels, Mr. Speaker, in the examples I have gave, we can clearly see the effect of dominating the media, such as television, newspapers, having somewhat worse or as worse as having political fundings. In conclusion, I would like to conclude and emphasize the usage of newspapers and the power to advertise events on campaign in television is as important as political fundings. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Honorable Umar Farouk, for the very thorough explanation. So Honorable Umar's explanation is on the usage of media and newspapers for a political party is as important as political funding. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, we are now moving to the second debater from the government's side, Honorable Hasbul Hadi, 24 years old, an undergraduate student at Malay-speaking University, National University of Malaysia. So now, without further ado, I would like to invite Honorable Hasbul Hadi to present his statement in 3 minutes. Please welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, government, opposition, and members of the floor. In the light of bringing towards betterment of Malaysia an emergence of public concern over the financing of political parties, I would like to keep my stand with today's motion, amendment of political financing law in Malaysia, with my following key point, which to reform the institutional or agencies that are responsible for political funding surveillance to support the amendments of this law in Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to again highlight the literal definition of political funding, which refers to how political parties and individual politicians raise money for election campaign, daily operation, and other activities. And why do we need this political funding law? Because we need to regulate how political parties and politicians receive and use money by ensuring disclosure of the source of funds and donation as well as the amounts received. Political parties are governed by the Societies Act 1966, where their financial accounts are submitted to the Registrar of Societies or ROS. This act, however, does not require these political parties to reveal their sources of funding. Without proper legislation or a law to govern the financing of political parties and the politician, this might lead to the act of misappropriation, bribery, fraud, or even abuse of power. Following the major scandal of 1MDB and SRC, the Malaysian Bar also suggests that there is an obvious need for good governance, accountability, and transparency in Malaysia in regard to all activities carried out by every political party and politician, especially in the process of handling their political funds. Advocates of the law argue it is essential for holding political parties and politicians to be more accountable, ensuring transparency of the funds and preventing from any corruption action where funding is concerned. As the government side, the primary aim of this institutional reform is to ensure and to allow for greater autonomy of these institutions to monitor election and the activities funded for the political parties. Based on the research by Edmund Terence Gomez and Joseph Pong, three major institutions that need to be considered are Election Commission, the Registrar of Societies, and the Attorney General's Chamber. Current status quo, these three major institutions are lacks capacity to monitor compliance with political finance regulation because they are not empowered with investigative power by any law in Malaysia to carry out independent investigation and audits. Hence why we need to amend this political funding to give greater autonomy for these three institutions. Before I end my speech today, I understand that yes, funding is very much relevant for the political parties to spend for their operational expenditure, example, salaries of workers, political campaign, community aid, etc. But there's always a limit in everything. Hence, the limit is needed and will be controlled by law, which in this case is the political funding law, and also in an effort to institute public trust in political parties in Malaysia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Hasbul Hadi. Honorable Hasbul Hadi from the government side is in support of this motion with his problem statement, institutional reforms for political funding surveillance. So now, moving next to the opposition, the second debater from the opposition team, Honorable Amir Aiman, 21 years old, currently pursuing his studies at the University Utara Malaysia, UUM. So without further ado, I invite Honorable Amir to present your statements in 3 minutes. Please welcome.
A very good afternoon. I bid to Mr. Speaker, members of government, members of opposition, and members of the floor. I believe that enacting a new law is a good deed, but not for political financing. According to article in New Straits Times entitled Malaysia to Table Political Funding Bill in October, said that although campaign funding by candidates right now is limited by 200,000 for federal elections and 100,000 for state elections, there are currently zero law to manage and monitor political funds. But surely, all of you must wonder on how exactly this law will benefit and also at the same time bring drawbacks to our political environment. That's why, from opposition point of view, we think that this law will promote nepotism among political parties even worse than before our country do not have any law about it. But first, what is nepotism? Definition provided by Cambridge Dictionary mentioned that this word means an act of using your power or influence to get good jobs or unfair advantages for members of your related connection. In other words, we can call it favoritism. So how nepotism related to this political financing law? The proof is Dr. Kasim Nur Muhammad in his article on Focus Malaysia stated that any politician or political party in Malaysia is now able to accept contributions without any restriction and from sources that are not revealed due to the lack of clearly established restrictions on political fundraising, meaning that they could receive contributions since we do not have any laws particularly about political financing. Then he claimed that by the existence of political financing law, the sources of political funding that end parties will be restricted. This is the part that will prove to us on how nepotism among the political parties can become worse than before. Due to the law, what will happen to the sources of political financing. What will be happen is we starting to ban corporate donations, foreign or anonymous donations, also other prohibited sources, and depends to authorized sources only, which signifying that there will be only selected sources that will be allowed in providing political funds. But the thing we do not realize is that the list of sources highly will be set on the favor of government corporations, since they are the one who will decide the selections of authorized sources. Hence, our aim of improving the integrity of political environment will be unsuccessful, because at the end of the day, this nepotism vibes that will pervade it. That's why from the opposition side cannot see any law as a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Amir Aiman. Unfortunately, I think there is a line connection problem from your side. And using the decree of my jurisdiction, if I may, I want to give 30 seconds extra for Amir Aiman to give concluding remarks.
To prove the nepotism among the political parties will increase is Dr. Kasim Nur Muhammad in his article on Focus Malaysia stated that any politician or political party in Malaysia is now able to accept contributions without restrictions and from sources that are not revealed due to the lack of clearly established restrictions on political fundraising, meaning that they could receive contributions without limit and from sources that are not disclosed, since we do not have any laws particularly about political financing. Due to the law, what will happen to the sources of political financing? Things that will be happen is we starting to ban corporate donations, and we only depends on the list of sources that been in favor of government corporations, since they are the one who will decide the selection of authorized sources. That's why we think that this cannot see as a, that's why we see enacting a new law cannot be a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Amir Aiman. I hope the panel of the judges could listen the final remarks from Honorable Amir Aiman very carefully. All right, so we are moving to the third debater from the government side, Honorable Ahmad Akif Sharafuddin, bringing the pride of the oldest university in the country, University of Malaya, is definitely not easy for you. So without further ado, I would like to invite Honorable Ahmad Akif to give your statement in 3 minutes. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. I would like to bid to Mr. Speaker, members of the government, my learned friends of the opposition, as well as members of the floor. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would like to start my debate today with a problem statement. That is, in Malaysia, there is no statutory audit in place that requires every political party or even politicians to present contributions received and also expenditures made with such contributions. Now, as a result, this creates opportunities for misappropriation of the contributions made to them, in which they can use such funds for their own personal gain. And in order for us to fill up this lacuna, Mr. Speaker, I propose that we conduct an annual mandatory audit under the Political Financing Act. A statutory financial audit is essential for the Political Financing Act because first, it examines the political parties or candidates' contributions, and second, it also examines expenditure documentation. Third, it also examines banking statements and also other financial records. And because of this, there are 4 advantages to conducting a statutory audit. Advantage number 1, Mr. Speaker, we can keep the political system transparent. The reason for this is that when it comes to political funding, political parties must be audited. And in the current state of affairs, the YB Wong Chen, the then MP for Subang, mentioned that the management of political party accounts needed to be improved because simply receiving money from the public could lead to misappropriation of funds for politicians in order for them to use the funds for their own personal use. And recent cases of criminal misappropriation, such as the 1MDB and the SLC, are clear examples of why we need a definite statutory audit. And as a result, the audit will help to increase transparency. And when there is transparency, it will also curb nepotisms or also favoritisms, as argued by my learned oppositions. Now, advantage number 2 is that auditing can aid in the verification and reporting of political parties and politician contributions. And as a result, public funds will be used only for legitimate political purposes rather than for private gain or use. Advantage number 3, Mr. Speaker, is that auditing will also assist in determining whether political parties or politicians are following political finance laws. And this will then increase politicians' accountability to follow political finance laws. And last but not least, statutory audit benefits the public in that it provides essential information regarding political party funding and also spending. And as a result, the public can have confidence and trust in the accountability of these political parties and politicians. Now, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, as it is important for us to amend the Political Financing Act, it is also essential to make a statutory audit under the Act. Hence, why I suggested to have a statutory audit under the Act for a better Malaysia. Thank you from me.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ahmad Akif, for the very thorough statement presentation. Honorable Akif is in support of this motion on amendments of political financing law in Malaysia, with his problem statement on mandatory audit for every politicians annually. And next, I would like to invite the representative from the opposition, Honorable Riyad Ilham Rosali, 22 years old, a student at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia. So now I would like to invite Honorable Riyad to present your statement in 3 minutes. Please welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of this House, the voice of the people is sacred to our democracy. As the manifestation of the people's will, our elected representatives therefore must represent the people and propel their best interests. Honorable members, the power of the purse is one of the most potent methods of political persuasion. Financiers of the political machine, from the start of the electoral campaign to the end of the term, therefore can be considered one of the most powerful players in the game of politics. I would like to bring up special attention to political donations from foreign entities. Honorable members, foreign political donations are a threat to our beloved country. As it currently stands, there are currently no restrictions to foreign entities to finance political parties and politicians in this country. We must not forget that all forms of political donations have strings attached to the receiver. Donations from foreign entities are no different. By allowing foreign interests to influence the people's representatives, our national sovereignty and the democratic process will be under threat. This is simply unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, the corrupting power of political donations of the democratic will of the people can be seen in the words supposed leading democracy. The lax electoral finance law in the United States allows foreign actors such as Saudi Arabia to influence American policymaking through donations. According to the Federal Election Commission, donations from the Saudi embassy to the Republican Party total over $165 million from 2019 to 2020. Through such donations, Saudi interests were better protected in Washington, as was seen in the failure of the bill in the House of Representatives to suspend military cooperation with Saudi Arabia for its role in the war in Yemen. To avoid such encroachments to our legislative process, the motion must include an amendment to ban all forms of political donations from foreign entities. Stringent measures must be undertaken to ensure our politics will not be corrupted by the influence of foreign powers that wish to subvert the will of the Malaysian electorate. For maximum potency, I suggest that the ban must also extend to the lobbyists and the NGOs to avoid any indirect foreign influence. Members of this House, I would like to conclude by bringing up the question of integrity. Democracy is a fragile entity. In a fledgling democracy such as ours, the onus is on us to ensure that the powers that are beholden to the electorate not foreign interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable Riyad Ilham is in oppose of the motion, saying that the government must ban all forms of political donations from foreign entities to safeguard our democratic process from foreign interference. So now we have two more debaters with us, one from the government and one from the opposition. But before I proceed, maybe the debaters do not know that there are currently a debate in the social media platform on this debate right now. So maybe, dear viewers, if you have any questions that you want to ask, because we will be having Q&A session after this, you could post your question in the Facebook page as you wish. So without further ado, I would like to move to the last or final representative or debater from the government side, Honorable Alif Zakwan Shaiful Nizam, 21 years old, currently an undergraduate at the International Islam University Malaysia, or IIUM. So I would like to invite Honorable Alif to present your statement in 3 minutes. The screen is yours.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Parliament, I would like to bring your attention to the need for institutional reform in this country in order to enforce political financing laws in Malaysia. I can agree with all the arguments put forward by the members of the government and opposition on what should we include in these political financing laws. However, we can have many good political financing laws, but if it would still be useless if they are not properly enforced. So a question that we should be asking is, who should we entrust to enforce these political financing laws? And these agencies or bodies entrusted to enforce these laws should be truly independent from the government or the executive, especially the Prime Minister. Currently in Malaysia, the two important bodies or agencies involved in regulating political activities in Malaysia are the ROS, Registrar of Societies, and also the EC, the Election Commission. The ROS is responsible in regulating the registration and also the conduct of all political parties in Malaysia. However, as we know, ROS is not independent from the executive, as it is under the Home Ministry, which is under the government. Therefore, I would like to propose for political financing laws or political laws relating to political activities in general to be placed under the Election Commission. However, even the Election Commission or the EC is not free from controversies or questions of whether it is truly independent. This is because according to our federal constitution, the members of the EC are appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on the advice of the Prime Minister. And in reality, the Prime Minister actually exerts a high influence on the appointment of EC members. Therefore, the EC has to be reformed. In order to do this, the federal constitution must be amended for the EC or the Election Commission to be placed under the monitoring of the Parliament or a committee of the Parliament, which consists of both members of the government and also members of the opposition. Next, if there is any violation of political financing laws, the public prosecutor would have the power to prosecute the violator. However, in Malaysia, oddly enough, the public prosecutor and the Attorney General is the same person, and this will create conflict of interest as the AG is basically the government's lawyer and should not be entrusted to prosecute government officials if there is any violation of political laws by them. Therefore, there should be a separate Office of Public Prosecutor or OPP, separate from the role of the AG, which will be given the power to prosecute, and the AG will remain as the head legal advisor to the government. So, members of Parliament, to conclude, my proposal is that firstly, there should be a reform EC which reports to the Parliament, and secondly, there should be an Office of Public Prosecutor which is separate from the Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Alif Zakwan. Honorable Alif Zakwan is in support of this motion, saying that it is a need for institutional reform. So now we are having the very final debater representing the opposition team, Honorable Anis Afina binti Hassan Sanusi, 22 years old, also from the International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM. So without further ado, Honorable Anis Afina, the screen is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I would like to mention that I agree with the issue raised by the government, which is no mandatory audit, reforming institutions and spending limits. But as the opposition, I would like to argue that the loopholes in our current political financing ecosystem is not due to the absence of a new legislation, but it was due to the weaknesses of current law and lack of enforcement, which can be solved without amending nor enacting new political financing law. So my solution is a two-pronged approach, which can strengthen transparency and also accountability in the financing of politics. So it will be more time effective and also solve the root cause of the problem. So no need to amend federal constitutions or whatnot. So ladies and gentlemen, the current legislation that we have now, as mentioned by my learned Prime Minister Ashwarya, that is that Election Offences Act 1954 and also Societies Act 1966 that actually indirectly govern the political funding. But there are certain weaknesses that had been identified. For example, as Section 19, subsection 1 of the Election Offences Act that does mention on the limitation of spending by candidate, but it is only limited to official campaign period. So no provision mentioned on the expenditure limits on candidates standing for election. And also it is not mentioned on the obligation for the political parties or individuals to reveal the identity of anonymous donors and whatnot. So as for the enforcement body, we agreed that we have election commission, but they do not have sufficient capacity or autonomy to monitor the compliance of political finance regulations because they are not empowered with investigative power to carry out independent investigation and audit. So the institution should be enforced in order to exercise a major role and carry out their duties without any fear or favor. So in this part of my argument, you can see clearly that these are the problems in our current legislation that need serious attention. So we do not need new act to govern the political financing law, but the suggested provisions that both sides agreed just have to insert it in our current law, and the mentioned amendment can solve our concern in the current legislation. So there are 5 key takeaways that we can learn from this debate for a better Malaysia. First, limitations on how much money can be given to parties applies to contribution in form of loans, cash in kind, or such as sponsorship of goods or whatsoever just can be inserted in our current legislation. Secondly, if the status and problem is enforcement and lacking of the enforcement of the institutions, why are we reforming and creating new law? Because more acts will not guarantee the impact if the lacking of enforcement and the execution is still there. So I believe those solutions could be done without we enacting new law pertaining to Malaysia political funding. So with that, I conclude my speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ani Safina, for the presentation of statement. So to conclude, Honorable Ani Safina also in oppose of the motion, saying that it is a good amendment, but prior to that, a two-pronged approach is needed to strengthen transparency and accountability in the financing of politics. So now, thank you, Ani Safina, and also to all debaters. I am opening the floor for Q&A session between the debaters. So for now, 20 minutes will be allocated for Q&A session among all the debaters. But prior to that, I have a friendly reminder for all of you. You only have 1 minute to ask your question towards your opponent, and the opponent has only 1 minute to answer the question that was directed to you. So in this case, you may use the raise hand button, and I will call out your respective name, and then you have to point your questions to your intended opponent. For an example, maybe Amir Aiman from the opposition has a question for Alif Zakwan from the government, and then Alif Zakwan also need to answer that question within 1 minute. All right, so I hope it is clear for all of you. So now I'm opening the floor to anyone of the debaters who would like to pose a question. All right, so on my screen, I see Hasbul Hadi raised his hand first. So Hasbul Hadi from the government, please, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I would like, Umar, the gist of this motion is actually to curb the corruption action, as we can see from the high-profile cases of politicians. So can you further elaborate on how the control of news and also media can help us to against the corruption cases among these political parties and politicians?
Thank you. Please welcome Honorable Umar from the opposition to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Brother Hasbul Hadi, for the brilliant questions. As I stated before, the definitions of political fundings or even political financings is actually money for electioneering. And when we are talking about money for electioneering, it's for campaigning. And when we are talking about campaigning, there's a difference between the power to have the stronger hand in campaign, or even in campaigning, such as in televisions, such as having substantial amount for their own events or even their own campaigns, by establishing that by discipline the televisions, their campaigns can help to compete fairly between political parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Umar. So now I'm opening the floor for the second question. Now I see Honorable Anisafina from the opposition who are about to ask the question. So please welcome.
So I would like to ask a question to Ms. Ashwarya in regards to her speech, which in her proposed amendment, cash donation is avoided. So may I ask, with regards to the amendment, what is your proposed solution to that? And maybe you could put some reference for your amendment. Thank you.
I'm not going to make the second mistake. Honorable Ashwarya Menon, please respond within 1 minute.
Thank you, Ms. Anis Afina, for the question. Firstly, I would like to clarify the part in this debate in which the reason why we are having such a high amount of focus on cash donation is the fact that there is no much regulation on the funding that's received by an individual politician is used for election, or it's going to be used for general activities that's been conducted by the party, because as how the debate has progressed, we have no laws that regulate or audit or is made mandatory for the parties to actually provide the financial reports, the expenditure reports that's done on behalf of the party instead of the individual. So when we are limiting cash donations, when it comes to running politics, there are lots and lots of other factors that can source in between as a form of assistance. For instance, to actually look out for the technology or the machinery that one could use to run an election. And this could be the type of assistance that we can focus on instead of cash donations.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ashwarya Menon. And now I see Honorable Akif, Ahmad Akif from the government who wants to ask the question. Please welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So my question is directed to Ms. Anis Afina in regards to her point regarding there is no need for a clear, definite legislation regarding Political Financing Act. But the problem is that in Malaysia itself, there is some serious cases of criminal misappropriation involving huge monetary funds that is used towards the politicians' own personal gain and personal account. Now, isn't that a very big problem to show that we need a clear and definite legislation? And because of that, we can also see that some other countries have provided this law. For example, in Australia, they have a limit of political funding of 1,000. And also in Singapore, our neighbor country, they have a limit of 5,000 Sing dollar in order for us to curb this situation of criminal misappropriation in political funding. So yeah, can I have a clear, definite solution from Ms. Anis Afina? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ahmad Akif. So this question is directed to Honorable Anisafina from the opposition. 1 minute for you.
Okay, thank you for that question. So I believe in order for us to table any amendment or new act, it will be time consuming. And because of the problem that we agreed, it is a big and huge problem that all of us have to face. So because of that, inserting the amendments that all of us suggested in a new act will be time consuming. So why not we just put your amendment, our just suggested amendment, in the current legislation? Because we have to realize that actually in our current legislation, we have realized on the part where political funding is very important, because I have mentioned section 19(1) of the Election Offences Act that actually recognize the limitation spending on the during the campaign, but not the standing election. So actually our law is good, but it needs a better amendment by just inserting such a proposal or amendment in the current legislation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Anisafina. And now I see Honorable Ashwarya Menon from the government is raising her hand. So please welcome.
Thank you. And I would like to address this question to Mr. Umar Farouk, talking about the media coverage that the ruling party has in terms of election. I would like to take an example of the previous general election where the ruling party BN had lost considerable amount of support and trust from the public, primarily due to the fact that they were re-electing members of parliament who were previously convicted with offenses related to political financing. However, they've been put back into election because they were part of a faction or they were part of a favoritism that's happening within the party. So isn't this an example that even though we are having a good media coverage, citizens are still able to see if a political financial law has been breached, and such a situation is actually going to cause more chaos during election as well as on the political front in general, even though the media coverage were to be biased on either sides?
Thank you very much, Honorable. Please welcome Honorable Umar Farouk from the opposition to respond.
Test.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Thank you, Speaker and Ashwarya. Regarding the last general election, there's a big cases of 1MDB, and then there's a lot of cases by other MPs in the government political parties concerning corruption and money laundering, as well as a lot of money from contracts that they have taken to their own pockets, and not even sourcing the money that they have taken to their own political parties or for their political party for campaigning and events. And this is because when there's a blast of corruption, there's a blast of money laundering that happening news as well. A lot of people voting for the opposition because applications like Instagram, Facebook, media socials are covering this blast corruption, this blast of 1MDB and also money laundering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Now I see Honorable Amir Aiman from the opposition. We're going to ask the question. Please welcome.
I hope I am audible. So I want to ask a simple question to Mr. Ahmad Akif. My question is how exactly auditing can curb nepotism among politicians? That's my simple question to Mr. Ahmad Akif. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ahmad Akif. Please.
Yes, thank you, my learned opposition, Mr. Amir Aiman, for the question. Now, the question has a simple answer that I will give in two ways. Firstly, is that when we have audit, it will ensure that we have speculations or even rumors regarding the politicians to be addressed. For example, if I can give one clear example, speculations regarding budget 2023 being an election favor budget due to the 97 billion given to the development expenditure. All of these can be addressed if we have a statutory audit under the Political Financing Act. And this will ensure that the budget that the government has tabled is used for development itself and not for political purposes. So if I can say that this is actually a domino effect, when we provide transparency, we can also decrease nepotism towards and amongst the politicians themselves. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ahmad Akif. So now I see Honorable Hasbul Hadi from the government. Please welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to extend this question to Mr. Riyad Ilham. So I have just one question to you. Do you agree that with this implementation of political funding law, we can curb misappropriation, bribery, fraud, or abuse of power in political parties and politicians?
Thank you very much. So please welcome Honorable Riyad from the opposition to respond to this question.
Thank you for your question. I agree in a sense that it will, to some extent, stop this sort of acts. However, there are still some things that are lacking in the motion. as I highlighted, that will prevent it from being a fully potent source of a full antidote to the problems that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Riyad from the opposition. And now I would like to invite Honorable Alif Zakwan from the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to address this question to Mr. Ami Aiman. You mentioned that the government, your fear is that the government will decide which source of funds is legal, which source of funds are not legal. But this is not the case, because that will be decided by us, the parliament, on what to include in the law, what to restrict, what to ban, and what to allow. And if you're worried about the enforcement, I have mentioned about the institutional reform that we propose we will be doing, which is a reform election commission, which will be monitored by the parliament, consisting of both members of the government and opposition. So can you elaborate on what is actually your concern of these political financing laws? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Honorable Amir Aiman to respond.
Like I said before, in my beginning of speech, enacting a new law is a good deed, but not for political financing law. Because the main problem in this amendment is if we take a look carefully, that this law are full of mechanism, but there is no check and balance from the both sides. Meaning that there is no check balance from government and also opposition in enacting a law. Because at the end of the day, each of mechanism have high tendency to side it to government only. So that's why in order for us to enacting a law, we must make sure the check and balance of the enactment of law is sided for both of sides of government and also for the opposition side. That's why I thinking about nepotism among politicians will become much worse if we enact this law. Thank you. I hope it answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Amir Aiman from the opposition for the response. And now I see Honorable Ashwarya Menon from the government, if you would like to ask any question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to address this question to Ms. Anis Afina. As far as I'm concerned, we from government have clearly stated how there are loopholes in the current system, and we have clearly stressed on why an amendment is necessary instead of enacting a completely new law, which is also what came from the side opposition as well as his speech earlier. So may I know, how does your paradigm actually differ from what we are trying to propose in the debate all along?
Thank you very much, Honorable. So now I would like to welcome Honorable Anis Afina from the opposition to respond.
Thank you, Ms. Ashwara. So how we differ from the government side is when you're enacting a new law, it will be more time consuming. And I should agree that both sides agreed what are we actually concerned about: institutional reformation and also audit report, and plus on the spending limitation. So our stance is, instead of we need or we have to consume more times, why don't we just have maybe I would like to say shortcut to just insert what we are concerned in in our current legislation. So it is what makes the both side government and opposition different. So amendment, the new law or Political Financing Act actually would not resolve the root cause if we have still the problem, we still have a problem of lacking of enforcement, and also the capacity of the election commission did not enforce. So we will do that in the current legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Anis Afina. We still have a few more minutes to go. So now I see Honorable Asmuhadi from the government. Do you have any more questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I would like to ask Mr. Amir Aiman on this. I believe that the opposition agreed that the current law and regulation, for example, Societies Act 1966, have gaps in controlling the political funding in Malaysia. Don't you think if we just amend this act, there will be an overlap of regulation of financial surveillance of non-political parties and political parties?
Thank you very much, Honorable. Please, Honorable Amir Aiman from the opposition.
I believe in terms of enactment of law, the loophole, or we call as a lacuna, will be happen, and the overlap between other laws may be happen. But the main problem is the government side answer the question about the how we guarantee the effectiveness of the law if we succeed to enact this law. That's why if we have a overlap law, that will be a problem to our political environment. That's why in enacting a new law, especially about political financing law, we must take a look carefully about the mechanism in every single aspect in this political financing law to make sure that there is no lacuna and also there is no overlap with other laws to ensure the political environment at the end of the day will become more integrity to be achieved together. That's from me.
Thank you very much, Honorable Amir Aiman from the opposition. And now I see maybe the final people to ask the question. Honorable Ashwarya, if you have any more curiosities to ask, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to address this question to Mr. Amir Aiman. As far as I'm concerned, members of the government have clearly stated what are the problems of the current law. And we talked about institutional reform, and we also talked about how to regulate existing political financial law. And a part of the law, we have clearly stated that we are going to put a limitation and more regulation on privatized funding, which is also inclusive of corporate funds. On the opposition's end, in your speech earlier, you said that this law is going to cause a ban on corporate funds, which is not exactly true. So don't you think the opposition has actually gone way too far-fetched in seeing what are the bad effects this law could bring in comparison to the worst case scenario over your paradigm in which the nepotism factor would still be prevalent even if these laws were not to be present? So how can you explain the fact that without these laws and with such a flawed perception of what we could bring, the opposition still stands with their stance?
Thank you very much, Honorable Ashwarya. I think Honorable Amir Aiman is becoming very popular right now. All questions toward him. So please, 1 minute is for you.
As like we discussed before, the selected authorized sources will be depends on the government, on the favor of government. That's why, which signifying that there will be only selected sources that will be allowed in providing political funds. And also, if you said about the limitation on the political funding, the thing we do not realize is that the list of sources or the limitation of the funding will be set on the favor of government, corporation, since they are the one who will decide the selections of authorized sources. Hence, the aim of improving the integrity will, the aim of improving the integrity of political environment will be unsuccessful because of the nepotism vibes, meaning that this nepotism is caused by the enactment of the law. If you see, even if we set a limit of funding political, that's why I oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Amir Aiman from the opposition. So now we still have a few more minutes to go. Supposedly it ended already, but upon the request from the organizer, maybe it is very hard to determine who is the best debater, since all of you are totally good. So now I have been given some jurisdictions to ask you question, personally from me, no bias to government or the opposition. So to answer my questions, probably 1 or 2 questions, I want a representative from the government side and also a representative from the opposition. So for this first question, maybe the government will start first. Any one of you, the first one to click their raise hand button. All right. Okay. So we have been discussing about law at length. So every one of you have been saying about laws, about acts, about jurisdictions. And now I want to retract this discussion back into political reality or political context. All right. About the grassroots. We have been so fascinating discussing about the politicians, discussing about institutional reforms, but we somehow forget about the grassroots level. This issue of political financing laws in Malaysia is totally new in our country, unlike in developed or civilized country, especially at the West. So how do you want to propose the most effective way for us to educate and also to increase the awareness of the grassroots that this issue is equally important as the economic issue? Because in context of Malaysia, it's always bread and butter issues. It's always about economic first. It's always about unemployment first. I don't think so a lot of people give their much attention to this very vital issue. So how do you want to convince? How do you want to educate the public about the importance of this issue? So maybe from the government? All right, I see Honorable Ashwarya representing the government, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would say that this issue primarily goes back to the fact that there is a lack of political awareness among the public. The first thing that we would need to do is to let the public know that there are two different types of elections. One, it's the general election that is the popular one, the common one that the public would be involved. And the other one is the intra-party elections where members of the same party would be electing for a particular position within the party, which would affect the political front in the larger scale. And most of the frauds, most of the political financing issues are happening at this level because people are generally misappropriating the funds that they receive in the name of the party for their individual purposes and benefits to vote by, or to actually convince people in the party to vote for them because they would be able to provide more and more money to them. So it's becoming more of like a faction instead of a normal election. And this is the thing that we need to educate the public about, on what are they supposed to know and what can the government as well as the public do to avoid this situation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ashwarya, representing the government. And from the opposition, please. From the opposition,
Okay,
anyone of you would like to respond?
The opposition team.
Yes, from the opposition team.
All right. So in order for us to educate from the grassroots movement, I think it is important for have an outreach program and also have a significant social media as a platform, because nowadays we realize most of the politicians have used their own social media accounts to educate society. So why not to start at the grassroots movement? We have to educate them based on what they see, what they hear every day. So despite of that, I also look that the platform of debate or roundtable discussion is very important to educate the society out there, such as what we have here right now, Youth Parliamentary Debathon, which can improve or increase the political awareness or political literacy among the grassroots. So I think it is among the effective way to improve political literacy at the grassroots level. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have 2 minutes to go so that we could end at 4:10. So I want to post another question and 1 minute for government and 1 minute from the opposition, which is this issue will not become relevant if the politicians, especially the lawmakers, do not reach the consensus or political will among them in order to support for this bill to be passed in the parliament. So what is the way so that we can ensure all the lawmakers reach the same consensus or reach the political will to proceed with this bill in the parliament, if this is being tabled in reality? So maybe from the government, sorry, from the opposition first, because just now we started with the government. Anyone from the opposition who would like to take the question?
Hello?
All right,
I will.
who is that? All right, sure. Honorable Riyad.
I think, in my honest opinion, politicians do the acts or do such actions if they have their own vested interests. So we as activists or whoever must convince them that such laws are needed so that they can benefit from it, or to prevent the opposition, the members opposite, from gaining advantage over them. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Riyad, representing the opposition. And how about government? All right, Ahmad Akif. Honorable Ahmad Akif, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think for us to convey towards the politicians regarding having a consensus of this political financing act to be tabled, we need to put a public pressure towards the politicians, because I do believe by having public pressure, the politicians would reflect on themselves to ensure that this kind of political financing act will be passed and also will be tabled in our honors and in our House of Parliament itself. Because when a public reflects towards the politicians themselves, they do have to realize that it is towards the mandate of the people that our election system will be provided on them, and they have to use the mandate very wisely. And when there is public pressure, such as our own Youth Parliamentary Debathon discussing on this is actually a good public pressure and public platform for us to make the politicians realize that this such amendment is very useful towards the country and for our own betterment for the Malaysia itself. That's for mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmad Akif. So it's exactly 16:10 or 4:10 p.m. So I think that is the end of our question and answer session. Thank you very much to all honorable speakers and debaters for your very insightful and informative sharing and presentations from all of you. So maybe since this is the last episode of Youth Parliamentary Debathon 2022, so I just want to give you some wise words. So there is a saying that hard time creates strong people create good times create weak people, and weak people creates hard times. So this is the cycle that we are living right now, and this is the culture that we are going to live upon for the next few years, which is the culture of debate. If this is not the culture of today, perhaps we are the one who are going to initiate so that the culture of debate will become our culture in Malaysia, inshallah. All right, so thank you so much. We know that our youth are very spiritful. You all have the potential to transform our current systems in a variety of ways. You are the nation's hope of the future and of the country. So our ultimate goal is the same, which is to create a resilient and truly independent nation in which the people can recognize their own weaknesses, open our minds and open our hearts to accept different opinions and different perspectives. What's the reason? The reason is for us to create those limitations and transform those limitations into our strengths and potentials one fine day, inshallah. So thank you very much for Malaysia Kini for organizing this event. So now I'm passing the floor back to Iman from Malaysia Kini. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our amazing moderator for today, Mr. Muhammad Ika Daniel, and also to the debaters. Good job, everyone. There is no denial that our future leaders for today are beyond extraordinary. And now, the moment we all have been anticipating has come. Who's the best debater for this session? The recipient of the title of Best Debater is based on the scoring by the panel jury, consisting of the organizers and our collaborative partners. The debater was evaluated through criteria that include use of language, quality of debate content, body language, and even personality. The winner of the Best Debater title will get a free lifetime subscription worth 5,000 Malaysian ringgit from Malaysia Kini. With this, I invite Mr. Luke McGreevy from the Australian High Commission in Malaysia to announce the winner as well as to present the closing remarks. Mr. Luke McGreevy, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Iman. And I'd firstly like to say a big congratulations to all of the debaters and everyone who's participated today for what was a fantastic debate, a really, really high quality debate. I really enjoyed it and it was really, really thoroughly covered the issue. As a former debater myself, I'm actually going to say a few different words to build up the suspense before we actually announce the best debater for today. And I'd just like to say that I think a big congratulations to everyone obviously who participated today, but also throughout the Debathon 2022 and throughout the weeks and months that we've been working. Everyone's worked very hard, and congratulations. The skills you've gained here and through this program will serve you well in the future. They're still serving me today, the skills that I learned as a debater in school and in university. I'd also like to echo Iman's comments and thank our moderator, Mohammed Daniel, for a fantastic job in moderating this session today. It was really, really excellent. So the Australian High Commission is really proud to support this, the Debathon 2022, and events like these are really important to help build people's skills in the future. And as Mr. Daniel said, the youth are the future, and the sort of challenges that the people around the world will be facing will be addressed by people such as yourselves. So these sort of skills are really important. And for Australia, the links between in education between Australia and Malaysia are really strong. My hope is that one day you can all study or debate in Australia, or study with Australians who've come to Malaysia, to one of the fantastic institutions here. I'm a bit worried now if you're going to debate against Australian university students, because I really think you'll beat them hands down. But just really, really fantastic work. And finally, I'd like to say a big thank you and a big congratulations to Malaysia Kini and the Kini Events team. They've done a really, really great job in organising this. It's not easy to organise an event at the best of times, but it's particularly not easy to organise an event and keep momentum going for an event that goes over a period of time, and also to continue this event after COVID, I think is a really, really, is a credit to the team at Kini Events and all involved. And I think that was a fantastic effort from everyone. So I'll finish that there and move on to what we've been waiting for. So just to re-emphasize, it was a really high quality debate. Everyone had different arguments, different styles. All of them worked really well. I think I speak on behalf of all of the judges saying everyone did a fantastic job. But there is one, there can only be one best debater on the day, and the best debater today was Miss Aishwarya D. Menon. So congratulations, and I'll pass it back to you, Iman.
Thank you so much to Mr. Luke for the closing speech just now. Congratulations, Aishwarya. And of course, next we will have Mr. Timo Guzman from EU, who can't be with us today, but he's here to share his closing remarks. So I'm going to play a video.
Very good afternoon, dear participants of the Youth Debathon. I'm really sorry I cannot be with you this afternoon. My name is Timo from the EU delegation to Malaysia. And I would like to thank you for your engagement, for your enthusiasm about this competition, about your engagement in this exchange of ideas. And of course, this could not be more timely than in the situation right now, as we're actually heading to G15 after such a long time of preparations, of discussions about rumors of the date. Finally, we're getting there in a question of actually only 3 weeks. So what we're talking about right now and what you are discussing is no longer theory, but has become practice. And quite soon, many of you will, for the first time in your life, go to vote. So on this very important occasion, as I myself still very fondly remember the first time in my life I was allowed to participate in the general election of my country, I would like to congratulate you. I assume that, of course, I don't need to preach to the converted at this stage. The fact that you are engaged in politics, that you are motivated to participate in this debathon, that you are actually discussing concrete issues about political financing that are very much to the heart of political issues, of important questions influencing many aspects of the political life and the political system of Malaysia. Therefore, I would assume that, of course, I don't need to motivate you to go to vote. But please see this as an important civil responsibility, as your opportunity to make an impact in the future of your generation, of your country, at the moment where it's your say about where Malaysia is headed for the coming 5 years. So once again, thanks so much for participating in this Youth Debathon. I wish you a very inspiring afternoon discussing issues. that are very close to the heart of political reform of Malaysia, that have been discussed, as you're probably aware, and as you will touch upon this afternoon in Parliament over the past month, and therefore are very relevant and have very practical consequences for the political system of Malaysia. And as I said, a very inspiring afternoon, and also make the best of your choice that is going to come on 19th of November. With this, I hope to see you in the future, to meet you in person at a later stage of the competition. All the best, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guzman, for this speech. And of course, on behalf of the organizer, I would like to once again graciously thank our collaborative partner, the European Union and Australian High Commission, strategic partner, Bersih, Youth Empowerment Partner, Taylor's College, co-partners, Malaysian Institute of Debate and Public Speaking, MIDP, Undi 18, Undi Sabah, Impact Malaysia, The Risers, Institute for Research and Development of Policy, IRDP, University of Malaya Students Union, UMSU, and International Islamic University Malaysia Students Union, and as well as our media partners, Kini TV, World of Buzz, Chili Sauce Media, and Astro Awani. Once again, well done, debaters. For your information, all the debaters here will receive a free Malaysia Kini subscription for 1 year. And dear viewers, you are still able to vote for your favorite statements by the debaters at mk.my/undidebat for a month until the 28th of November 2022. With this, it's the end of our Youth Parliamentary Debathon program for this year. Once again, we would like to apologize if there are any omissions or defaults during the event. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our viewers for staying until the end of the event. This is all from me. I'm Iman Rizwan as the MC for today. Good evening, and I hope to see you all again next year.
Tuan Speaker, sebenarnya saya berasa agak sedih dengan pihak pembangkang pada hari ini.
Kami adalah kerajaan yang berfikir untuk semua rakyat Malaysia.
Kami, pihak pembangkang, lebih prihatin akan golongan pekerja prekariat.
Australia and Malaysia have a long-standing friendship built on shared history, people-to-people links, and vast cooperation. To tackle future opportunities and challenges, in 2021, we elevated our relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership, or a CSP. Our defence and security ties date back to World War II, when Australian and Malaysian soldiers fought side by side. Looking ahead, the CSP also lets us cooperate on issues like maritime, cybersecurity, and transnational crime. Through trade, Australia and Malaysia play a vital role in each other's prosperity. Our economies are complementary, and our commercial ties support jobs, food security, and innovation. Education is at the heart of the relationship. Our deep people-to-people links have been forged through generations of Malaysians studying in Australia and increasingly Australians studying in Malaysia. Finally, the CSP also helps us collaborate on issues shaping our future, like the digital economy, the environment, health and science. Building on our long-standing and enduring friendship, the CSP lets us confront common challenges and seize opportunities. Mari bersama kami.
I've always been fascinated by numbers since I was a child. And as I got older, that fascination only grew more and more. So it was only natural that I wanted to get into accounting. You could say it was a calculated move. During my studies, I learned that numbers, with solid organization and great communication, only makes it better. And I'm also grateful for all the amazing collaborations I was a part of at Taylor's. Like this one time, we built an affordable e-learning device, Ducky Pie, for students in need. It's great that we could give back to the society in more ways than one. It was fulfilling, but I also couldn't wait to start working. Graduating from ACCA faster than my peers, with 3 paper exemptions from Taylor's, definitely helped. As an accountant, we play an important role. And today, technology has helped us to be even better at what we do. So with all that said, I'm ready to take on the challenge, if you'll have me.
Kita Malaysia, together we march into a brand new era. Kita Malaysia, satu suara, together we rise and chant merdeka. Kita Malaysia.